Hello again, everyone. This is Chris Syracuse, and that's Robert Harding. I can roll those R's.
Not bad.
Not bad at all.
You have a future in radio.
Geez, thanks. I have a face for radio. This is the Citizen Sports Weekly. We're recording this fine video on Friday, April 18th, sorry. Again, this is what happens when you work in the future. And I'm putting things in for the 19th, and it's actually the 18th. So it's Friday, April 18th, 2014. Anyways, we're going to discuss some wonderful sports topics here. And with no further ado, we will jump into our first topic. This seems to be the hot topic of the week in the Syracuse, New York area. The Syracuse University football team took the wraps off their new football uniforms for the 2014 season and beyond. And they're doozies. And yours truly wrote a column a couple days ago saying that these uniforms are ugly. I just think they're ugly. I mean, I understand you want to be modern, you want to, be current and appeal to your recruits. Although I really think that if you're an 18-year-old kid and you're making your decision on where to play college football and where to get an education, let's not forget about that, on what your schools or what your uniform may look like. I think that you shouldn't be going to college. I think you're pretty shallow and you could do better things with your time. But
oh, wow.
that's just me. I'm sorry. I mean, this is all the Nike-fication of sports, of uniforms, and these jerseys, I just think they're horrible looking. The numbers are really weird looking. And then all the hype, where Nike put out a press release saying that the uniforms were inspired by the Syracuse quad and New York City, downtown New York City architecture. I was wondering, downtown New York City, I always thought that all of New York City was kind of downtown. I know there's an upper east side, upper west side. Manhattan's a pretty big place and everything.
You have different boroughs and things like that.
So. But when you hear New York, you think of Manhattan. And I guess downtown, is that like the area where the Empire State Building is and Madison Square Garden or Rockefeller Center, or is it Wall Street? Is it Greenwich Village? Is it the area where the new World Trade Center is? What is downtown New York City? But I guess the point I'm trying to make is that it's all a bunch of garbage. It's garbage. It is. Because, honest to God, I would love to meet the person who had to write this stuff. I bet you the person who wrote these words never played a sport in their life. I'm serious, an organized team sport in their life, okay? I'm serious, because you read this stuff and it's PR garbage. And it's stupid. I'm sorry, I'm going to be honest here. It is utterly stupid. They're football uniforms, okay? And I wrote that if Syracuse, and the part of the press release said honoring the past. If you want to honor the past, then you take the old jersey from the late 50s, early 60s, whenever, and you give it modern, a modern update. And I used Robert's Buffalo Bills as the perfect example of how to do this. The Bills took their jerseys from the mid-60s and just modernized them. They put the sleeve numbers, the numbers that were on the sleeves on the shoulders. They really did an excellent job. I'm jealous of the Bills uniforms. I think they're great. They're classic, but they're new. Mm-hmm. Okay? And that's what they could have done with Syracuse. But Nike won't do that. No, we got to do something really different. And we're going to say it's something old. And we're going to honor the tradition. And we're going to bring in, we're going to import, things from New York City and the quad of SU. Come on, guys, this is garbage. I'm sorry, Robert. I got to give you a chance to speak here. I apologize. Go ahead, man.
Man, you really love these uniforms, don't you?
I'm burning up, man. I'm telling you, I'm on fire here.
You know what? I like it. I like the excitement that it built. For the week. The anticipation. I don't think they look all that bad.
Yes, they do.
He's like a little kid over here. He's gonna start stomping his feet on the air. I like the white. They're technically the road jersey, but it sounds like right. All these jerseys are interchangeable and they can wear them whenever they want. But the white road ones to me look sharp with the white helmet. The platinum jerseys, the gray jerseys, whatever you want to call them.
They're gray. Nike's calling them platinum.
Yeah.
That's how you justify charging $100 for a replica. by calling it platinum.
They look good. This is the trend in sports these days, folks. You got to embrace it. It's you watch a college football team, throughout the year, they play 12, 13 games, and they'll probably wear, 7, 8 different jerseys in some cases. Look at Oregon. If you think Syracuse is bad, Oregon's 10 times worse. Of course, they have Nike right in their backyard.
Yeah, well, Oregon is Nike University, okay?
Right.
They're basically owned by Nike.
Yeah.
Really.
So, to me, was it this huge announcement that, needed to be at Destiny USA and all this other stuff? I don't know.
You're desperate for attention.
Yeah, I would have done it, tied in with your spring practices or your spring game, that kind of thing. But, in terms of the actual uniforms themselves, they can grow on me. I'm not a huge fan.
Like a fungus.
But like a fungus. Man, you really love these.
I'm just going to, go ahead and finish. I got one more point to make, but you go ahead and finish.
But, I think, once, one of the issues here for people, watching this announcement is they came out with blue, they came out with the gray, they came out with the white, and everyone was asking, well, where's the orange? Apparently they have an orange one coming down the pike, but it's, they just didn't have it as part of the announcement. So, I think they'll have an orange one. I think people will like it, and maybe that'll kind of cool some of the anger about, the lack of orange that we see in these uniforms.
It's funny because you say lack of orange. That was really the big criticism when the Dolphins unveiled their new uniforms about a year ago, that where's the orange? They really de-emphasized the orange, and there is orange in it. I mean, call me a sucker, but I actually laid down $100 for a Nike replica Dolphins jersey, and there is orange in it. But Nike does these things where they just feel that they have to make it. It's a Nike. You look at this like it's a Nike jersey. It's not generic. And I'll just end with this. If you look at the great college football teams of the last 50 years, the powers, Alabama, Penn State, USC, okay, those schools there, I got news for you. They don't change their uniforms. They're not flamboyant. They're not, they don't have these ties to tradition inspired by the Adirondack Mountains. I mean, look at Penn State's uniforms, okay? Look at Alabama. Do you think a kid who's being recruited by Alabama is going to not pick Alabama because Alabama's jerseys don't have any numbers on the shoulders or sleeves? It's just a crimson jersey with white numbers on the front and the back. Do you think a guy who's being recruited to play for that program is going to say, no, I don't want to go to Alabama. Their uniforms aren't busy enough for me. They're not. There's nothing fancy. There's no houndstooth stripes on them. Okay. There's no elephants on them. Okay. There's nothing that says Roll Tide. They're just basic uniforms, and that's the point here. You can be simple, and yet you can still be good, and there's nothing wrong with that. And I think I'll just let it end with that. So.
Attaboy, Chris.
Thanks, Robert.
Gotta let it go at some point.
All right. End of rant.
Let's talk more
Syracuse. Yes. Now we're gonna move from football to basketball. And the big news this week for the SU men's basketball team is Jerami Grant has decided to forsake his last 2 seasons on the Hill, and he's going to go ply his trade in the NBA. And again, you can't blame these guys for wanting to do that. They want to make a buck. You can't fault them. I mean, if you were a computer programmer at SU and Microsoft offered you $1 million a year to do their programming, I think you'd leave school and jump to that job and everything. But obviously it's not as simple as that either. I think Grant could have benefited from at least one more year at Syracuse. I think Tyler Ennis could have benefited for another year playing college basketball. But these guys know that the quicker they get out, the quicker they can make money. And if they're any good, they're going to get the free agency earlier and make the big money earlier too. But I think we all know from the recent past that most of these guys that have left early, it doesn't work out. They're nothing in the NBA. I mean, Deion Waiters has had a little bit of success with Cleveland, but you look at all the other guys that have jumped early. Name one who's done anything. I mean, since Carmelo. I mean, obviously Carmelo was a special exception, but none of them.
Yeah, it's, to me, this trend in college basketball, which I think was made worse by the NBA putting in that one and done rule.
Yeah.
for me, looking at Jerami Grant, he's a player, as you said, that could have benefited from at least one more year at college. His jump shot needs some work. Even his his low post skills need some work. He's strong, on the block, but he could use some work. And looking at his game and where he's projected to be, everyone, I came out a little critical of his decision, and I got a couple of tweets saying, oh well, if you had a choice to make $1 million, you would. And it's like, well, he's going to be making.
Yeah.
If he gets drafted in the late first round, he won't be making $1 million in this.
He could be the next Fab Melo, really.
Yeah. And he could easily fall to the second round.
Right.
And then what? Then what are we talking about? We're talking about him possibly missing the team. So
it's going to be in the development league.
Yeah, and for I think he, with time can be a good NBA player. He certainly has the family tree helping him out.
No doubt about that. Yeah.
But one thing to keep in mind with Jerami Grant, Harvey Grant, his dad, and Horace Grant, his uncle, they both were in college for at least 4 years.
Yeah.
So and they went on to have productive, very good NBA careers. They weren't. You can't say that they were the top 5 players of their generation, but they played a long time in the league, and that should be the goal for Jerami Grant. And I think he's going to need a few more years to develop, especially getting used to playing with the big boys, so to speak, before we see him reach that level of his uncle and dad.
I think if the NBA had their choice, that it would be 2 and you're through, instead of 1 and done. 2 and you're through, or maybe 3, then you can be free.
Yeah.
Or
if it were 2 or 3, I think it would make a lot more sense.
I think 3 years is I think the right. I mean, not every player is the same, obviously. I mean, look, Carmelo, definitely 1 year. The guy, even if they hadn't won the national title in 2003, it was obvious that this guy was ready for the NBA. And there are players that could, like LeBron James. He didn't need to go to college. He could literally start in the NBA when he was in high school. But those are those are super rare.
Yeah.
And I think it's literally once in a generation type player that you get a guy like LeBron who could skip college and go right to the NBA and be a star. That being said, I think a lot of these guys, I wonder how much they listen to their friends, or they hear from prospective agents and they're telling them you need to go pro, and they hear stuff, and so it would have been nice if Grant and Ennis had stayed another year, but they're gone, and Syracuse has to move on, and I'm sure they're going to have some good guys coming in, because Boeheim's definitely turned it into a factory here where this guy leaves, you replace him with this person, and you just keep chugging. But that being said, I think this year's a little bit different, and obviously we got a long ways to go till practice starts, and so we'll see what happens. But I think if Syracuse fans think that this team is going to get off to another 25-0 start, or maybe be a Final Four contender, I think they need to be realistic here. That I think they'll be a good team next year, but they're not going to be extra special, and they're not going to get off the 25-0 start, and it could be a little bit of a sobering season for Syracuse basketball fans.
Yeah, they're going to be in a different situation come next year, because really your veterans are Trevor Cooney and Rakeem Christmas, and those are 2 players that they've shown flashes of brilliance, but they haven't been consistent over time, and so certainly they could improve. Christmas certainly showed more last season than he did in the previous couple years, but in terms of Cooney with his outside shooting, he's just never been consistent.
No, and he did get off to such a good start at the beginning of the season, but once they started conference play, he just couldn't hit anything.
Yeah.
And the other name we got to mention is Dajuan Coleman there. Coleman.
Yeah.
He's lost weight. I saw some photos of him. He's lost 25 pounds.
Looks good.
He's coming back from a knee injury. He's going to have a lot less weight there on his knee, which I think will help. And I'll tell you, I like this kid. He went to Jamesville DeWitt here in the Syracuse area, and I think he's going to make a contribution next season. I really have a hunch that he's going to be very motivated, hungry, and is going to really do good for Syracuse next year. And we'll see what happens. Like I said, until they roll the balls out and you start dribbling up and down the court, you really don't know what you have. So we'll see what happens. So, all right, you want to end it there, Robert?
Yeah, let's wrap it up.
All right, folks, that's it for another week of the Citizen Sports Weekly. And until next week, we'll see you later. Take care.